Um, so today, our panel discussion is actually on summer and articling positions. So for those of you who may not know what that is, summer or articling, we're hoping that some of our viewers are actually pre-law school or maybe some eager undergrad students or high schoolers. So a summer law position, it's quite self-explanatory. It's just a summer position to help build your skills, your experience, help build your CV. OCIs are something that we'll be discussing in this panel. It's similar to a summer position. It's between your second and third year, and it includes a more rigorous interview process. So we'll be looking at OCI positions as well. And then there's finally articling positions, which is basically, for those of you who don't know, a 10-month apprenticeship that Ontario law students complete in addition to writing their bar exam. And alternatively, students can opt to do the law practice program, which we'll also be discussing today. So a big question that a lot of law students have now, in particular, as articling applications are coming up and summer applications are coming up, interviews are coming up, what are some tips that you can provide to students going into interviews? Additionally, what are some ways we can make a good impression and stand out? And what advice do you have for students who are less extroverted? So maybe if we can start with Jeremy and just continue them the same order for anyone who wants to provide their 2 cents on this.
For sure. So the first thing I would say is know your audience, know the firm that you're applying to, and just research as much as you can. Preparation is key when it comes to these interviews. Kind of showing a keen interest in the type of work they do. So maybe following some of the lead cases that they've participated in, and showing a keen interest yourself in why you want to apply to that firm. At the end of the day, grades are very important, but there's a reason you got to the point where you've gotten an articling interview or a summer interview. They've already screened you for that. So now they want to see what your background is and how you'd relate towards that area of law. That's crucial. And just to show that it's not just about having kind of, if it's a well-known firm, that you want to go in there and have a bigger firm like Gold or anything like that, or Brian Greenspan, firms in the criminal law world that are very prestigious, but that you're not just looking for an additional title on your resume, so to speak, but that you actually do have a profound interest in the work that they do. I think that first and foremost is pretty crucial when it comes to speaking in these interviews. And if you can convey that when you are speaking to either the head of the firm or other associates, that'll go a long way.
Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. Would any of the other panelists care to add on to that?
I could add a few more things. He basically summarized the gist of it, but I think a really important thing also to do is prepare questions to ask the articling principal. Like, ask about their work environment, ask about what kind of assignments you would be assigned, so that they know that you are interested, and to see what their field of law is actually, what they actually practice in terms of the field of law, and prepare those questions ahead of time, have them in front of you so that you can ask them at the end of your interview, because it shows that you're actually interested in the place that you want to article with as well, or to the law practice program.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess some of the other panelists can maybe chime in on this, but a related question would be, how can we initiate these conversations on like stuff like diversity during an interview? How can we start up the conversation of, you know, what kind of work environment is this, without, you know, seeming rude about it, I guess the simplest way to say it. And I'm gonna just open that up to any of the panelists to speak on.
I think from my personal experience, and I think it's good to have that honest conversation about diversity. I don't think you have to walk on eggshells, especially the person interviewing you is either your principal or an HR manager at a firm. So I think they're going to expect some sort of conversation about diversity, especially given the times now. And I think the other, I guess, aspect of it would be to do some research, like Jeremy had mentioned, do some research about the firm and look into the lawyers there, see who's on, I guess, as who's on the team, and if there is a diverse range of lawyers, whether it's ethnicity, gender, all of that considered. And I think it's just a matter of having a conversation about it, just maybe through a question, maybe even through your experience in working with diverse backgrounds. I think you could bring it up as a strength that you have, as something you look forward to in a work environment. I think it's just being creative and bringing it up and having an honest conversation.
I think just to build on that comment of using diversity as a strength, one thing that I feel as soon as you enter into law school, you just see it as this ladder you're trying to climb, right? It's getting that summer position that'll get you that articling position, that'll hopefully get you that becoming an associate, then will then get you to become a partner. Having these frank conversations about diversity, and just to use it in my context with criminal defense law, a lot of our clients are Tamil. If you bring that up to your employer and you can say, yeah, you know what, I'm fluent in Tamil, I speak it, I understand it, I can write in it, they're going to look at that as a huge strength, because there is that level of comfort that cultures bring if you look like, not only look like the person that you're representing, but you can understand them. And at the end of the day, not to seem too crass about it, but it's business. It's good business, because immediately suddenly you have this clientele that was never explored before, where they feel comfortable with you and they're going to keep coming back to you, that perhaps the firm you've been working for didn't have access to before. And suddenly you come in and you have this thing that's an asset, and it's incredibly important to bring that up at the interview level, because now they're not seeing, okay, what does this potential articling student or this associate or this potential summer student, if they're not seeing what we as a business can do for them, they're bringing something to the table actively, besides their research skills, besides their acumen, besides their trial advocacy. This is something that's very niche and unique to them.
Yeah, definitely. So if relating to that, what are certain skills that we can actually highlight during interviews, and how can we do this? You mentioned, actually speaking about diversity and being honest, and just mentioning your skills in that sense. But what are ways that we can communicate other skills that interviewers may be looking for when hiring?
I think there are 2 or 3 skills that I would think are at the top of the list. One of them, I would say, is legal research. Legal research, I know a lot of, legal research is something like all the firms are looking for. You're an articling student or summer student, you're going to get hit with the most research part of the, file work or casework. So I think that's something to highlight in an interview. That just something, and that you'll see like the interviewer taking notes right away. Like I've seen it, I've done it. The other thing is your writing. I think writing is also important. And I think usually, correct me if I'm wrong, but they usually ask for a writing sample when you apply for articling. I've been asked, I don't know if all firms do. So I think those 2 are important skills. And then again, you can also talk about the languages you speak. I think that's also another asset or a skill that's going to kind of set you off from the rest of the group.
So something I would add on to that is how comfortable you are speaking with clients or engaging clients. That's especially important in a small firm, because you might be having that type of interaction. So trying to highlight that in an interview as well.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
I would also add something to that. So if there are articling postings or even for like law practice programs or work placement postings, pay attention to what the firm is actually looking for. So look at the qualifications that they're looking at, look at the skills that they're asking for, and have like prepare examples of those skills that you prepare like answers for the law firm to be able to show that you do have those skills. So I'm just like throwing an example, like for writing, like you mentioned, show your articling, show your writing skills through the actual documents that you have done before. Or if you're drafting, prepare some draft documents and be able to show those during your interview. So things like that, I think pay attention to what they're also posting, what they're looking for as well.
And if I can add as well, on top of some of those skills, like more of the soft skills, like I found that really worked well when I was interviewing, and looking at my resume and my cover letter and using actual solid experiences. But I found a big one was about taking initiative and being like a self-starter. I found a lot of smaller firms especially really appreciated that and wanted me to expand more on those experiences because of the nature of the firm, maybe even the type of work. Like, again, for me specifically around family law, because we were a smaller firm, and a very busy firm, the lawyers really liked students who came to them instead of just waiting in our offices. Like, we weren't really fed work consistently, we would always be the ones going to them. So I think that was a skill that they really stressed on, and also the ability to like work in a team, again, especially when you're in a small firm. Being able to fit goes both ways. So I think stressing teamwork and being a self-starter were two skills that I found quite effective in my interviews with smaller firms anyway.
yeah, for sure. Are there certain skills that you think you would need for more for larger firms? Like, are there any certain skills that jump out at you where you should definitely kind of highlight during your interview if you're interviewing for firms with larger numbers, or like maybe like a Bay Street firm, for example?
I think regardless of size, whether or not you're applying to a boutique firm or a larger Bay Street firm, just simple knowledge of the subject matter is huge. Just being able almost to be cerebral in your memory. And I know that sounds kind of corny and maybe seems like a bit of a catch-all, but just being able to pull up case law at a moment's notice, that's incredibly helpful. Again, just to use it in the context, because I've only really been exposed to criminal defense work, but at a Crown pretrial stage, when it's you and a Crown who's 10 years your senior and they haven't read the latest Ontario Court of Appeal case or the NCC case, or at a judicial pretrial stage where it's your senior counsel who hasn't bothered to look at it, or the judge even, but you bring up this case that nobody's heard of, that will go a long way at the interview level, and I think at a long way in your career, because they're going to remember you, and they're going to remember you for a positive reason. They'll be like, wow, you know what, that 1 or 2 year lawyer or that articling student knew something that we didn't. And you can't put a price tag on that. That's something that'll follow you around for your career, and I think in a very positive way.